Hello again, precious friends. Thanks for joining the Carnivore Hippie. We are, as you can see, back in my kitchen again today, and we are going to be starting step one of making MEATZZA, one of my favorite things to make. It's real easy to fall prey to a pizza hankering if you don't really know how to go about it. This particular MEATZZA is number one, it's very filling because it's a lot of meat, and number two, it is very reminiscent of a traditional pizza once you get over not having the bread. But it eats like pizza, it tastes like pizza, and we're just gonna have a good time. So this video is going to be about making the sauce, since the whole thing is a bit long. So we'll do a second video that I will post in the next couple of days or so about the actual MEATZZA itself. But today we are going to make our sauce. We're going to make a tomato-based sauce, very much like a tomato-based sauce you would get from a traditional pizza place. And for those of you who do not do nightshades, I completely understand. We're going to be doing a white sauce, a cream and cheese-based sauce that is very similar to what you would get if you were to order a white sauce from a traditional pizza place. So let's get started. So let me move the camera here. So we got our things started right over here. We have this is going to be our white sauce. We got a half a cup of heavy cream and an ounce of cream cheese, heating on low heat. That's just we're gonna leave that for the moment, get happy. And right here we have a 6-ounce can of tomato paste with a can full of water. Getting ready, getting hot. Stir that up. The tomato-based sauce, by the way, is super easy. It's what I call a dump and go recipe. You'll love it. If you like tomato sauce, you'll be very happy with this sauce. So we're going to stir this up and get all the tomato paste. Oh, you know what? That's a little too thick. This has to have enough water in it to be able to cook down. I don't want it to be so thick. You see how thick it is? It's almost as thick as it's supposed to be when things are all said and done. So I'm going to add, I just happen to have a little chicken broth right here from when I cooked my chicken meat that we're going to use for the MEATZZA sauce, and for the MEATZZA crust rather. And I'm going to add just about 2 ounces, I guess, an ounce or two, just to thin this out a little bit. If it's too thick to start with, then it won't have anything to reduce, and it could end up sticking to the bottom of the pan and scorching. You don't want that. So this is about how thick you want it, just about the thickness of regular spaghetti sauce, I guess, marinara. It's going to get thicker because pizza sauce is actually quite pasty. So, all right, now we're going to start with this. And over here we have a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of garlic powder. You can use fresh garlic if you want to, just a big clove of garlic, shredded up or minced up, however you want to do it. I don't think that using the powdered onion and garlic makes any difference at all in the taste of the finished sauce. Here we have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Like I said, I cook light on the salt, but if salt you can always add to taste. And here we have that was a half a teaspoon of salt. half a teaspoon. This is 1/4 teaspoon of thyme. And I'm going to show you again how I like to do my thyme. I just put it in my palm and squish it and roll it a little bit in between my fingers until it breaks up a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. Just rub it. Because like I said, thyme can get tough when you cook it, and the little leaves can be pointy, and they can sometimes end up tasting like little splinters in your food if you don't rub it. It gets kind of woody. So I always rub my thyme. Stir that in. And I'm going to put this on medium. Let it get started. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to show you what I do with my last herb ingredient. This is, boy, that started bubbling fast. Tomato sauce. Let me put this back over here, show you. Tomato sauce, when it starts to boil, it can really, really bubble hard and it can explode all over your stovetop. So keep it on a low heat and put a lid on it so that it doesn't make a mess all over your kitchen, which it will. It will like act like a little volcano. See? Can you see it? Popping out all over the place? Okay, just keep it on low and cover it. Save yourself a little trouble. So I want to show you what I like to do with my last herb ingredient. Now this is a 1/4 teaspoon of fennel. And you can leave this out if you don't want to mess with it, but I just love the flavor it gives to pizza sauce. I think it's very traditional in pizza sauce. It's largely what differentiates regular old marinara from pizza sauce is this fennel. Now you can buy ground fennel, but unless you use a lot of ground fennel, I don't recommend keeping it as ground fennel because it really does lose its taste before very long. And I'm going to show you how I deal with my ground fennel, my whole fennel. So I keep it whole because it lasts a lot longer. So you can grind it. It's little seeds. It looks like cumin seeds or caraway seeds. It's from the same plant family, actually. And you can use a spice grinder or a mortar and pestle if you want to. But this is such a small amount. What I usually do is I just run my knife through it. I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can lower this a little bit and see if you can see it better. Now, if you just run your knife through it, the seeds are going to bounce and go all over the place. So what I like to do is I like to put my knife down and kind of cover it with my hand a little bit. You can hear it crunching. And just run it back and forth. I ought to make a video for you about knife technique. So you can see it's already starting to look a lot more crunched up. I don't know how well you can see it, but trust me, it's getting a lot more crunched up. And so I'm just going to run my knife back and forth through it. See, I'm starting right here, and I'll be rocking my knife back and forth as I go back and forth, but I'm going to put my hand over it again. My hand is holding the tip of the knife blade down to the board, and my other hand is raising and lowering it and rocking it back and forth through the mass of seeds. Now, I like it a little more than that. And yeah, it does take a little bit of effort, but not that much. And now, as I pick it up, you can see it's become crushed and it's not like little nuts anymore, little seeds. It's crushed up some, and that's going to release the flavor much better into the sauce. Plus the fact that you're not going to have like any big seeds to get stuck in your teeth. Look at the top of the pot, all of the tomato sauce stuck on there. That tells you how much it's bubbling under there, even though I have it on low. So we're going to put our fennel seeds in. And this is a teaspoon of dried parsley, which I like just for taste. That's also optional. So this needs to cook probably for only about 10 minutes on low. Okay? And over here we have our cream sauce that we started. We put it on low and let it heat up. And that cream cheese has gotten nice and soft. And so now we're going to whisk this up gently. My silicone coated whisk is in the dishwasher, and I forgot to get it out before we started, so I'm just going to be really gentle on my nonstick pan, my nonstick skillet. Okay, so our half a cup of cream and 1 ounce of cream cheese is all blended up. And I've also put a tablespoon of water in here. You've heard me talk about adding water to cream before in one of my other videos. You have to have enough water in the cream so that it has time to cook and it has time to evaporate, or else the cream will thicken too much, and again, you could have scorching, which you don't want. So, and also the extra water helps disperse the flavor of the spices. So here we have 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a couple of big pinches of salt. Like I said, light on salt. It's probably a little bit less than 1/4 teaspoon. And you could probably get away with leaving the salt out altogether. But this is half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Onion powder. Half a teaspoon, or actually more like 1/4 teaspoon of oregano. And this, oops, I made a boo-boo. I'm going to have to use some of the cheese. This is xanthan gum. We're going to put that in later. This is a thickener so that the sauce will get thick enough that it will stay where you put it on the pizza sauce. I should have mixed it in with the salt and put that in last, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. And this is going to be 15 grams, of grated Romano cheese. You can use Parmesan. You can use whatever kind of Italian hard cheese you want. You could use no cheese at all if you don't want to, but I love the flavor of the cheese. And plus it thickens the sauce some. So we're going to stir this around and get the spices all blended in. Now, xanthan gum, the reason I should have put the xanthan gum in with the salt and put salt in later is because xanthan gum, when you introduce it into a liquid, it just balls up immediately, and it makes basically little tiny unpleasant gummy dumplings. It won't dissolve unless you disperse it in another kind of powder to help it disperse. So what I'm going to do is, when we get ready to do this, I'm going to put it in with the cheese, and that'll help disperse it. You have to have some sort of dispersal mechanism for it in order to put it in a liquid, or else just leave it out, because it just won't work. You'll just have little tiny balls of xanthan gum in your sauce. Now I use xanthan gum because we're going to heat that up some more. I use xanthan gum because it's a non-starchy thickener, and you only need to use a little tiny bit. Some people don't think it's clean for carnivore. I can understand why people feel that way. It is created by a bacteria. It's basically bacteria slime, pretty much, that they dehydrate. So if you're squeamish, you know, just leave it out. But the sauce will be pretty thin, and you'll probably have to spread it pretty darn thin to keep it on the pizza. I don't, like I said, I'm not particularly squeamish, and it doesn't really bother me, so I use it, but it's absolutely optional if you don't want to use it. The other alternative is carabine gum, or what's the other one? But those are vegetable based. They're not starchy, but they're vegetable based. The other one is, hold on. The other one is guar. Yeah. There we go. The other one is guar gum, which is also plant-based. So technically, xanthan gum is not plant-based, but there's such a small amount of it, maybe like a gram, maybe, for an entire recipe of pizza. So you do you, or if you're just low carb, but not trying to be zero carb, then, you know, if you need to thicken it a little bit, use a pinch or two of cornstarch. But then some people don't like cornstarch either. My point is that you can do you, okay? This is as carnivore as I could get it and still make it taste like pizza. That's my point. But you do you. So over here we've got, this is heating, and it's been bubbling just a little tiny bit. Let me move this back over. It's bubbling gently a little tiny bit because we have it on real low heat. And you don't really want this to boil. I mean, you can see, you want it to simmer a little bit, but you don't really want it to be bubbling hard. You can see also that it's thickened up some. What did I do with my spatula? Boy, I'm really, really unorganized today. I apologize. But I'm not going to start over. So here we go. It's thickened up now. This is still bubbling away in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my xanthan gum and I'm going to sprinkle it evenly all over my cheese. Or alternatively, like I said before, you could have held back the salt and mixed the xanthan gum powder in with the salt. Either way, and we're going to toss this up. The xanthan gum powder is going to stick to the little tiny shreds of cheese, and that's going to disperse it and keep it from balling up, bunching up into little, like I said, little gummy dumplings. So here we go. Now we're gonna add the cheese a little bit at a time and let it melt. Probably about a third or a fourth of the cheese at a time. Like I said, the tomato sauce is dump and go. It's just happy simmering away back there. You don't have to do anything to it. except for keep it from making a mess on it. Oh, well, here we just go in. That should have been 2 additions, but it all fell in, so who cares? So you can see how this is really thickened up. Xanthan gum doesn't need a specific temperature to thicken. It will thicken at any temperature as long as it's in contact with water, which is another reason why you want to add a little bit of water to your cream at the beginning, because you don't want it to over thicken. Now, if you find this has over thickened and you want it looser, just add a little bit of water to it. It's perfectly fine. See, now you can see it's nice and thick now, thick enough that you could spread it on a pizza and it would stay put. This is basically done, but because it's made of cream and cheese, it'll get a skin on it. I'm going to turn the heat off there. It'll get a skin on it if you leave it by itself. So I'm going to get a lid and we're going to lid it up, and I'm going to get rid of this messy thing. There. No, it's been 6 or 7 minutes. Wait for the heat to dissipate a little bit before you take this lid off, because otherwise you might get a big pop, a big volcano pop as soon as you open it. So you can see this? See how nice and thick it is? And that's all. That's all you have to do to it, really. That's it. And you can use this for any kind of thing. This is great for making what I call pizza skillet dinner, which I'll also make a recipe for. But you know, one thing at a time. But this is great for MEATZZA, pizza skillet dinner, something that I call spaghetti meat, which is basically just ground beef seasoned with a tomato sauce that you just eat in a bowl with some Parmesan cheese on top, which is another great carnivore meal. But yep, that's it. That's done. Let's turn the heat off. Now, I like to, at this point, since it's not on the heat anymore and it's not going to play volcano anymore, I like to just leave it to cool some and evaporate, because it's going to thicken up just a little tiny bit more, but it won't thicken up anymore if you leave the lid on. So I'm going to leave the lid off and just let it cool and thicken up a little bit. This is going to thicken up a little bit more, but xanthan gum is interesting in that when you stir it, it thins out. And then when you let it sit, it thickens up again. So if you feel like it's too thick, just give it a good stiff stir, vigorous stir, and see if it thins out enough to suit you. And if it's still too thick, just put a tablespoon of water in it and it'll be great. So there's that. Now, that's it. We're done. See how easy that was? So very soon I will be posting another video where we will be doing MEATZZA. We will be making the MEATZZA crust, and we will be using the sauces that we made to top the MEATZZA, and then we'll be baking the MEATZZA and tasting the MEATZZA. So stage 2 of MEATZZA coming soon. In the meantime, these sauces are great for, you could just put them on anything. This cream sauce is great for shrimp or chicken, or even just on ground beef. Of course, we talked about what the tomato sauce is good for. These sauces can go on anything you want. So just get creative with it. It's fun. I love you all. Thanks for joining the carnivore. Ha, that would be funny. The carnivore hippie. Thank you for joining the carnivore hippie. I love you all. Peace, love, and meat. I'll see you soon.